There's a good one. Got him. Good one. Big one. One of my favorite ways to catch them, basically from the pre-spawn through early summer, I would say, is with a Magdraft. And there's multiple styles of Magdrafts, multiple sizes. I like the rigged one the best. I always kind of start with the rigged. What I mean by rigged is that this has an internal harness, it has a treble hook that comes with it. So literally you can just tie it on and everything you need is there. They also make a freestyle version, which I'm also throwing, which is nice because it's weedless, right? So you can fish it through more stuff, but it doesn't have quite the same thump. There's something magical about the rigged Magdraft, no matter how many different copies and variations and knockoffs and spin-offs and different things that come out. There's just something magical about the Magdraft swim. It's a very slow movement, but a lot of movement at the same time. You get a lot of movement in a very small window. You got a real hard head shake and a magical kind of tail wag. So, one of the reasons why I like it for early in the season is, when the water is just starting to warm up, right? So right now we're at 56.3, okay? So, it's still pretty cold by the standards of, spawn and spring. So those fish, they'll want to slip up. They'll want to move up in the shallows. They'll want to soak up some of that warmth, but they're not going to be overly aggressive, right? So they're looking for something that is an easy target, right? It's an easy food item, but it's not going to spook them. Because a lot of these fish, we're fishing in, well, so far our bites have been in like kind of 2 to 6 feet. So you got to think, if you're a bass that's just pulled out of the middle of the channel that you've wintered in, you're cold, you're going to be freaked out at something with too much noise, too much sound. And the Magdraft's like the perfect combination of it's big enough, has enough movement and wobble and vibration that the fish can feel it without it being overly loud, overly intrusive. And it's just such a natural thing for them to eat. The other thing that's really nice about this bait is that it stays relatively high in the column. So, even like we're fishing through some really gnarly wood, lots of tangles and trees and stick-ups, but because of how the bait works, it stays in the top couple feet of the column. So it's an easy one to manipulate and navigate through this big wood and just pick apart pockets and places where a fish might naturally migrate into. Weird feeling. Wow, that was not very exciting. Wow, it's a big head, small body. All right, little guy. Cold and tiny. Thank you, buddy. I mean, they're not big, but dirty. Nice. Smoked it. Down the trap. Hell yeah. Short, fat little sucker. Thank you, buddy. All right, sayonara. Doop. Hell yeah. The strangest bite I've ever seen. And then, yeah. And then to end the video, where I found him, there's one, that's maybe a better one right there. A little better. nicer one. There we go, CJ. That's more the speed. Hell yeah. 6-inch Magdraft. Just such a easy way to fish in the spring. One of the easiest ways to get in when they first pull up. So, and it's fun. Thank you, buddy. Back you go. Right on, let's do that again. Sick. I mean, they're in this deeper stuff, they're just not eating a Magdraft in it. There's a good one. All right, buddy. All right, all right, all right. Okay, okay. There we go. Another one, 6-inch mag. Got it, pinned it. Can't even get it out. Thank you, buddy. Set up exactly where he should have been. Right on the edge. Nice, fat pre-spawner, sick. Get that one back in there. Thank you, dude. Right on, right on, right on. 100% bite. I knew there'd be one in that lane right there. All right, come here, come here. All right, nice. Came out and smoked it. Little fella, but right in a lane where it should have been, CJ. I'll break this down. I'll show you what I mean by lanes. I know a lot of it may seem super obvious, but let me just show you exactly what it is that we're doing. Thanks, dude. All right. Cool. So with the Magdraft, 6-inch especially, 8-inch, a little heavier, you fish a little quicker, but the 6-inch, it needs a slow speed, right? So it's difficult unless you start weighting it and altering it, and I can talk about how to do that as well. But in this shallow water stuff, when you know they're slipping up, what you really need to look for is lanes and pockets. Those are the two things that we keep talking about, lanes and pockets. So when I'm mentioning lanes, what I'm talking about is areas where you can make a cast and run parallel with your cast, right? So for instance, if I can get the boat to turn so you guys can see it, here is basically a lane where the bank comes down and then there's a tree line. And there is a lane of water in between the trees and the bank. And the fish will suck up into these trees and then they'll just position in a way to where they just set up in the lane. And it's a natural place for them to feed. It's a natural place for them to get to shallow water easy, but they could also just with one kick of the tail just slip back in, right? So this would be a lane. So I'm just gonna parallel, I'm gonna get the boat in, or if you're fishing from shore, this is an easy way to just kind of walk the bank, and you're just gonna fish these lanes all the way down. When I talk about pockets, I'm talking about more specific areas where you're making smaller casts, right? So a lot of a 6-inch Magdraft, especially in this type of cover where there's lots of wood, there's lots of stick-ups, I mean, you can get in trouble quick. A lot of the fishing here is just editing yourself, right? So not making too big of a cast. Short cast, accurate. Here's just a little pocket. There's a big tree, a big tree, a big tree, and there's just this little pocket of open water. Now, there could be other trees and stuff underneath. If you are addicted to live scope, you can always just scope around and see the trees. I am more, not that I dislike live scope, I think it's amazing, but for these shallow fish, I've caught so many big giant shallow fish this way. I really feel like turning your grafts off and just being more stealth is the best way to go. So, you know, I'll run just a normal, you know, straight 2D or down scan just to give myself depth, unless I know where I'm at. And if I know where I'm at, then I won't even do that, right? So this is the best 1-2 approach. Pockets and lanes, right? If you have room, cast it out, let it sink for maybe 3-4 seconds, and then just a slow, methodical retrieve. Now, you can overfish a Magdraft very easily, right? So if you go too fast, this thing will turn on its side, it'll look real goofy. So you wanna fish this really, really slow, but you gotta get the head movement. You gotta get that head to vibrate hard, the tail to kick. So, you know, usually like a 7-to-1 gear ratio is good. I have it on an 8-to-1 right now, because if I get bit by a 5 or 6 pounder in next to one of these trees, I want the speed to be able to pull it out. So I will force myself to torturously slow down, right? And it's tough with an 8-to-1. I mean, sometimes it feels like I'm not even moving the reel, but you got to get it kind of moving. You got to get that head vibration going, and then it's just a super, super slow, straight retrieve. And you just want to make sure that you feel it vibrating, make sure you feel it kicking, and when they bite, you're gonna know it. It's just a thunk, almost the same as a worm bite, or it pushes it towards you, and that's where the importance of staying in contact with your bait. So try that, lanes, pockets, that's the key this time of the year. No big deal.
Catch another one.
All right, on the 8-inch, warmed up a little bit, just went a little bit bigger on the 8-inch. Even the size fish smokes the 8-inch, so don't be afraid of the size. Draw power, boom. Thanks, buddy. Sick. Oh my God, dude. It about ripped it out of my hands. I looked down, I'm like, oh, 5 feet, I should get bit. Donk. Bro. Yeah. Got him. Good one. Big one. Get out of that tree. Yes. Okay, yes. Hell yeah, that's what I'm talking about. That is sick. Dude, down the trap, CJ. Dirty. Dirty, dirty, dirty. Whew, how'd he miss it the first time? Crazy. That's a gut on it too. Boom, nice one. Look at that. Boom. Hell yeah. Woo. Nice one. That's why we throw the Magdraft. Just a beautiful, beautiful pre-spawn fish. Cold, fat, healthy. Just a gorgeous bass. So sick. All right, I'm gonna break down the gear for you guys so that you can have fun just like this in pre-spawn. It's a no-brainer. It's a go-to. So get this guy back in the water and break it down. All right, guys, let's break down the 6-inch Magdraft and the gear that we're throwing on it. I talked about areas that I'm throwing it and what to look for as far as when to make the cast, but let's talk about the actual gear that we're using. So anytime you hear me talking about a 6-inch Magdraft, you're gonna hear me talk about this rod. This is a Megabass Destroyer P5. This is the BMG. Now, the BMG is a 7.5. It's technically a open water dragging jig rod. They built it to drag a football jig or a Carolina rig, something in more open structure. And it certainly is good at that. but it's an unbelievable shallow water rod. And the reason I like it for shallow water is that it's powerful. It's a very, very powerful. It's one of the most powerful rods in their line, but it's slow. And I don't mean slow as in bad. I mean slow as in it has a little bit of bend to it. So it allows that power to kind of transfer from you all the way to the fish. It's a very smooth fishing rod, right? So it doesn't have the best slackline sensitivity for fishing a football jig on the bottom or like hopping something. But in this type of situation where it's under load, a swim bait, a swim jig, you know, anything that's got a little bit of bend to that rod, it's incredibly sensitive. You could feel the tail kick, you could feel a fish just, you know, suck at it. You can feel all of that, but because that rod has a little more give than a traditional jig rod, it lends itself just so incredibly well to the shallows, heavy cover, big fish. Usually when I'm throwing a 6-inch mag, I'm gonna run it on 14 or 16 pound fluoro. Sunline Shooter is what I usually run. But anytime I'm around thick stuff like this and there's a chance to catch a fish like what we just released, I bump it up to 20 pound. Now, when you go up in size, if you go to 20 pound or 22 pound, you have to even slow down even more because the thickness of diameter will lift that bait if you go too fast. So remember, the thinner the line, the faster you can work the Magdraft. The thicker the line, the slower you have to go, but 20 pound is okay. Now, there is a way you can work around the thickness of the line, and you can add a snap to the front of your Magdraft. So a lot of guys will add a snap to it. The Magdraft was actually built to run on a snap. I'm just not a big fan of snaps. So especially if I get hit by a 5-pounder next to a stump, I want to pull it and know that I have a straight connection, not to bait. I just prefer that. So I'm okay fishing a little bit slower as long as I get a good connection to the fish. Now, when your bait comes out of package, it's going to kind of have all 3 barbs out of it. And there is a magnet inside that kind of holds that hook in place right there, right? So it just kind of snaps in place. Now, that is the mag part of the Magdraft. In all honesty, it's probably the least important piece of the whole thing. I don't even care about the magnet, okay? The hook is gonna come off sooner or later anyways, where you hit a stump or you cast it. Just take one of those barbs and just slide it in like that, and then run the 2 hooks like that, and you're good. Okay, so if your magnet starts creeping out, especially after you catch a bunch of fish, don't sweat it. The magnet really isn't doing a whole lot. It's nice to have, and it's nice to kind of hold it in place, but if it comes out, don't even sweat it, okay? So 20 pound BMG, and again, usually a 7-to-1 gear ratio. Today, an 8-to-1, and if you guys got to see that last one, it bit in a spot where I kind of needed to pull him a couple of cranks pretty quick and be able to fight him, and that's where that higher gear ratio really came into play. Now, if you're concerned about the treble hook or want to just have a little bit of a difference, you can go to a Magdraft Freestyle as well. I actually started with this morning thinking that maybe I'd fish a little bit deeper through some of this wood, but they just didn't eat it the same today as they ate the rigged one. And again, if they eat the rigged one, there's just something special and magical about the speed and the movement of the rigged. I really do like the Freestyle though, but usually I'll fish the Freestyle a little bit later. When they're a little more aggressive, I can fish it a little quicker. So, you know, you can utilize this 1-2 punch to use the rigged one early and the Freestyle one as you get closer to summer or fishing it through grass or some of that deeper stuff. But it's just such an easy way to catch fish in the spring, right? And, you know, sometimes it's fun to catch them on the complicated stuff, and sometimes you just want to get bit. And the 6-inch Magdraft's almost a guarantee anywhere in the country as a first move up. So give that a shot. I hope you guys have an amazing spring and catch a lot of beautiful, beautiful bass. Give the 6-inch Magdraft a shot. If you have questions, let me know. I'll see you again next time. Peace out, my friends.